Welcome to the Stewardship and Engagement update from your team here at EQ Investors. My name is Louisiana Salge, and I'm joined today by Johnny Bowie. What is stewardship to start with? Well, stewardship is the umbrella term to all of the powers entrusted to an investor and a shareholder in order to drive change and maximize value for clients, both in sustainable ways and financial, of course. At EQ Investors, we believe that active ownership is really important, and we drive change and we use our engagement to push for improvements because there is no perfect company out there, nor is there a perfect asset manager. Today, we will be discussing one of our key strategic engagement areas, which is ethical AI. And Johnny's been leading on this, so I'll be asking him the questions, and we will discuss why this is an important topic and the progress that we've made in our engagement efforts. So to start us off, Johnny, why is ethical AI a strategic engagement topic, and why is it important for us?
Yes. So over the last sort of couple of years, we've seen such a rapid uptake of AI, and not just in sort of the technology industry, but across a really broad range of industries. And we welcome it. I mean, if you look at the healthcare sector, it's really improving drugs' time to market in the drug discovery department. It's also helping to analyze patient data and diagnose people with illnesses quicker and more efficiently, which can only be a positive thing for society. But also, I guess, as more and more companies are trying to rush to bring AI models into their business operations, they could be done in an irresponsible way, which could have some sort of negative externalities that arise, particularly on human rights and stuff like that. So it can be sort of discrimination or human biases, or there can be spreading of disinformation and misinformation. So, for instance, if you look at a small company, a little small company that we know, helped to try and, during the COVID outbreak, when sort of students went online, they tried to bring this AI model that helped with sort of facial recognition to see if a student was engaged or not. And actually that has some potential discrimination effects if you might say that this student is not engaged when actually they are, just by reading their facial expression, which is really a bad thing. So I guess as investors, it's really important that we're pushing companies to see if they've got the right governance structures on ethical AI to make sure that they're deploying it in a responsible manner so that they can create value for society in a more AI-driven world.
Okay, Johnny, thank you so much. And how has EQ been involved in driving progress on AI then in the last years?
Yeah, so one of the ways has been through a collaborative engagement. So we're part of the World Benchmarking Alliance Coalition on Ethical AI. And through that, we have been sort of investors or lead investors in two groups, which is Intel and BT. And we've been, over the last year, sort of focusing on what AI governance structures they have in place to make sure their deployment of AI is done in a responsible way. And we focus specifically on sort of their human rights impact assessment, which is basically when a company evaluates the AI model before and looks at its implications on potential human rights, which is very important if we're going to be deploying AI in a responsible manner.
That sounds really valuable. And do you think there's any learnings that you took from your engagement in that collaborative group that now helps you with fund manager engagement?
Yes. So the group has been really, really insightful. I mean, before I started the engagement 2 years ago, I wasn't that much of an expert on AI, and they brought in some great people to discuss it and sort of make sure they know what questions we should be asking these companies. So there's been some great knowledge sharing, and it's been really, really effective.
I'm glad that was so insightful. And can you share with us some of the fund manager engagements and the progress that you've made in pushing them on this matter?
Yeah, so over the last year, we've engaged with, I think, 11 fund managers, and we've set up sort of 4 key performance indicators that we'd like to see. So the first one has been around looking at that portfolio and making sure they know which sort of companies this could be a material issue for. The next is to look at sort of a framework to assessing what best practice looks like in terms of AI governance. The third is to be engaging with those companies on AI governance if there's any weaknesses. And then the fourth has been to join that collaborative engagement by the WBA, which I mentioned earlier. And we've seen some great successes. Around 80% of the fund managers we engage with have at least adopted one of those objectives, which is great to see.
Can you share a little bit more detail about the successes that you just mentioned and what that entails?
Yeah, so I guess we're still quite at the early stages of this engagement, as it's been such a rapid uptake, and investors are trying to get together their sort of structure of their engagement and stuff like that. But most most asset managers have at least assessed which sort of businesses this might be a material issue for. So that's where we have the most KPI. There's been still a little bit of work to do, I guess, in using a framework to assess what best practice is, as well as engaging more frequently on the topic. And interestingly, actually, the asset managers that are part of that WBA coalition that I mentioned earlier have been the best in terms of the other KPIs because of that knowledge sharing that I mentioned.
Yeah, it really shows the value that these collaborative initiatives are giving us. We're really supportive of those, and despite some asset managers withdrawing with them, that's why we really need to push them on this front. So to finish off then, thinking ahead over the next year or so, what do you think is your priority when you think about EQ's engagement on ethical AI?
Yeah, so I guess, there's, as I mentioned, there's still quite a lot of work to do, so I'll be pushing them on sort of what framework they're using to assess what best practice is, as well as pushing them to engage a bit more on the companies that we see as being a bit weaker in terms of their AI governance. Aside from that, we're looking to attend some AGMs that we can ask a question on ethical AI. So I'll be doing a sort of scope out of some of the UK companies where this might be a material issue for, and then we'll try and attend some of those AGMs. And then finally, sort of last year, we saw quite a lot of shareholder resolutions around AI governance, and we expect to see some more over the coming year as well in the next proxy season. So I'll be speaking to asset managers to make sure they sort of get an understanding of to make sure we understand how they're going to vote on that topic and sort of push them to be voting in the way that we want to.
Great, and lots to look forward to. So thank you so much for joining for this engagement and stewardship update, and until next time.